Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show, brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, 631-756-1125. And the best prices anywhere in the tri-state area and beyond on rock salt, of which they have plenty of. And get your snow melt products now, because you know they're going to be in short supply as it is. And that means when we do get our first snow or ice event, they're going to go out even faster, whether it's Pelleto or Mag ice pellets and flakes. You can find that and a whole lot more at Omni True Value Hardware. 631-756-1125 is the phone number, and the website is omnitruevalue.com. And then a mile away, you can pick up your holiday lighting stuff at Wholesale Holiday Lighting by Giannini, your complete holiday lighting specialist, meeting all your decorating needs, whether you want your home decorated for the holidays or if this is your business. Giannini has plenty of Christmas stuff for you to go through and pick out the best that you think will look great on the front lawns you decorate, whether it's a countdown clock, Santas, snowmen on their shoulders, or the elf on several shelves. And they're at 162 Ocean Avenue in Lindenhurst, New York. Telephone number is 631-957-5106. And the website is liholidaylighting.com. And a gracious good evening to you, Mr. Rayo.
You know, I wanted to put up or start putting up our own Christmas decorations because it got to near 70 degrees today.
Right.
But the executive producer said,
no,
I cannot put up anything without her. And since she was working today, I had to waste a 70-degree day. And I know exactly what's going to happen, Joe. I know exactly what's going to happen. When we're together and it's time to put up those atrocious lights, and I have to climb and put my life on the line, going all the way up on that little giant ladder to the peak of the roof to string those lights, it will be probably 35 degrees with a 20-mile-an-hour wind and a wind chill of 5 above. I just know it. Well, that's how it always is. But,
this is where
could be a beautiful day like today. No.
This is where Wholesale Holiday Lighting by Giannini would be most useful, because they're your complete holiday lighting specialist, Joe, meeting all your decorating needs. The only thing they don't have is the insurance document and the will that your wife will have you sign before you go up on the ladder to put up the lights.
Right, and if anybody is wondering why I lead off with this, I am a charter member of
the Piss and Moan About Everything Club. Gotcha.
Correct.
Well,
correct.
You're not the sole member of the P&M Club, just so you know.
No, I'm not. But every day for me, I wake up thinking, what will it be today? What's going to happen today? This drives my wife crazy, but occasionally I will do this. I will do my Howard Cosell imitation. Ah, yes, another day of frustration and futility, if you will. And away we go. So, anyway, on that bright note,
yes.
How are you?
Did I tell you that Cleopatra caught her first fly?
Excuse me?
Cleopatra.
Excuse me?
Cleopatra caught her first fly.
Yeah.
I didn't tell you that. I'm very proud of this moment. Cleopatra caught her first fly.
Okay, now who is Cleopatra?
She's my Venus flytrap.
And who recommended it? Who recommended it to you, Morticia Adams?
No, I know. The thing is, I was watching, as usual on Saturdays. I was watching Planet Earth, which I've seen now like 100 times. There's a bunch of different episodes, but I've seen them all at least a dozen times. But they're so relaxing to watch, and they have a whole hour-long episode on plants and just how plants are pretty clever living things, but never mind.
Yes.
They do a whole bit though on the carnivorous plants, and I thought, you know what, I really would like to have a carnivorous plant because I don't have them now because they're out of season, but in the summertime, you get a few flies, and I did have some fruit flies jumping around. So I said, you know what, let me get a Venus flytrap, and I got one, and she lives a very charmed life, Joe. She sits on the windowsill. She's got a sun lamp that I put on for 12 hours a day. I actually pour the water. I got the pot, I got her in a pot, and you sit the pot on a saucer, and the water, if you water it, it goes through. Well, their soil is very spongy, so I actually don't even I don't water from the top. I water the plant from the bottom, and you can actually watch the water just get drawn into the plant, and it just disappears. It's hysterical. And it's not a little bit of water either. I mean, it's about a half an inch deep, and you can just watch it. You can see you watch the thing go down just like that. And for some reason today, that made me think of Witch Hazel, and how devastated she was when she saw Buddy there, and it reminded her of Paul.
Paul.
Yes.
My pet tarantula.
Now, dearie, I'm going to worm all your ugly secrets out of you. Who undoes your hair? I don't know why.
Do you like it?
I don't
like it. It's absolutely hideous.
I don't know. It's just so bizarre. The things that pop into your head at the strangest times that you never think about. And for some reason, I guess because I was on the Venus flytrap kick. Anyway, I had another day today where you wear a coat when you go out in the morning, and you wear a T-shirt in the afternoon. That's how it was. It was yesterday was 28 and 73. Today it was 31 and 68. Although it felt warmer than 68, but you guys actually beat me today. You 70 or better in a lot of spots in eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England. It was a beautiful day.
It turned out to be a gorgeous day out there, and it looks like we're on our way toward another very nice day for tomorrow.
Yeah, this weather front coming through tonight is there's some showers on the radar in upstate New York, but they're not coming through. They're all going to fall apart over time, and then you'll have a bit of a north wind tomorrow. So I would think the temperatures will be a few degrees lower, low to mid 60s perhaps, but it's not a screaming north wind. It'll just be a little bit cooler. And then, of course, we're still on path to Thursday with the south-southeast wind, the high going out, and the next front approaching. Looks like late Thursday night, early Friday, late Thursday night, or during Thursday night, the rain comes in, and it should be all gone, I would think, by midday Friday.
It's as we said yesterday, everything is very progressive, and this particular system will probably see all of you morning commuters just in time for the early morning rush to work and school on Friday. But it should be over with by midday, and pretty much maybe a little clearing by the afternoon on Friday. So it's all rolled up into, and again, it's all due to the rapid movement of this system as it moves through our area very late Thursday night into the early part of Friday.
Right. And some questions for the weekend because of the cold upper trough coming through. Saturday might be just a little bit unsettled in terms of cloud cover, and I still think there could be the odd shower. Then you've got this next secondary system that comes in for Sunday night, Monday, with a reinforcement of the colder air behind it. I think, I kind of made the case earlier today that you probably see the first, maybe the first light accumulating snows in Western PA, Western New York, Northern New England out of this. And I'm still of that mind from what I saw today. And then the only other thing was I was utterly confused by the day runs and the long range because Um, the 0 and 6Z runs last night were cold and blocky. Going into for Thanksgiving, as we get into not this coming weekend, but next week, the weekend after that, which is the weekend going into Thanksgiving week. Both those runs were cold and blocky, and then the 12 and 18Z. All of a sudden, it's all progressive for the next 16 days. So I can't figure out why it did that, but sometimes the models do that. I'm still fairly confident that the scenario that we laid out for the end of the month is going to come to fruition. But as always with these things, Joe, you think you have it all figured out, and then something comes along and throws a little bit of a wild card in it. So we'll see. We'll see what the models do tomorrow. But I just thought it was kind of strange that they went to a very progressive look after being maybe on the other extreme, being so incredibly blocky.
Well, we a week from this Friday, we were supposed to have some kind of a frontal system that was taking its sweet time and making its way into our area. It would be just a simple frontal passage. And I noticed, again, this is now not this Friday, but a week from this Friday. Now, all of a sudden, they just splash precipitation of all kinds all over the Northeast for the end of next week. And that was kind of a bit of surprise. I'm wondering whether or not that was just a computer burp, if you will, and then we'll go back to a simple frontal passage either tonight or tomorrow. But I was kind of surprised by all of that moisture that they're trying to bring in here for the end of next week. It was certainly a lot different than what we've been seeing over the last several runs. And, it's still, we're talking about an event that is going to be, 10 or 12 days in the future. But I don't know, you start looking at this because, people are beginning to inquire, what will Thanksgiving be like? Do you have any early clues or whatever? So that's the problem when you start looking way out ahead.
Now I've got the satellite up, and I'm gonna pose this theory to you. So the old storm that was off the southeast coast late last week and over the weekend, and seems like it's taking forever to move out of the way, is apparent on the upper right of your screen. Now, you tell me, does that not, considering some of the systems that they made subtropical or tropical storms, that to me looks like it is looking at the satellite.
It certainly looks more tropical. It certainly looks like it could very well garner a name, as opposed to at least a few systems that we've seen over this past hurricane or tropical storm season, which, by the way, comes to an end 3 weeks from today, believe it or not.
Yep.
And it's looking more and more, Joe, like we're not going to have any more named systems, although you see before you one that, yeah, I agree with you, could very well have a name, but I guess according to the standards and practices of the folks over at NHC, National Hurricane Center, it does not.
Well, they did on their 2 p.m. update, so we'll check it in a few minutes when the 8 o'clock one comes up. They did once again start to talk about this, and they labeled it as a 30% chance of it becoming a subtropical or tropical storm. I wonder, but I'm looking at the satellite signature and I'm thinking, you know what, we may already be there or close to it. Now, look, it really it makes no difference in terms of our own practical weather. We're just sort of talking, just in general here. But I wonder whether, and I don't know whether this is the case or not, but since they have to go to this alternate list, I wonder if there's like a whole bunch of bureaucracy that they have to do to use the second list, and they don't want to do it.
Maybe they have to go to the World Meteorological Organization and fill out some forms.
Right.
Okay, can we do it now?
And maybe you have to fill them out on websites, not unlike the website you had to fill out your form to go to Santiago, Chile. Santiago, Chile.
I will tell you, if it's anything like that website, they're never ever going to name another tropical system again. That's but I agree with you though.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I mean, it really looks uh, like a formative system.
Yeah, I mean, you got
worth naming.
You got the cirrus feathering on the west and northern side. I mean, it does look like there's, certainly there's a circulation. Obviously, I guess maybe if you want to make the argument that I can't tell because it's so on the edge. Maybe there's not enough convection wrapped around the actual center. Although I could think that there looks like there is at least some convection there. So it'll be interesting to see in a few minutes what NHC, if they say anything other than what they said at 2:00. In the meantime, you talked yesterday about the systems when they come into the west and how they look like they disintegrate when they go to the mountains, only to reform on the other side. You're seeing that process going on right now, with what came into the West Coast last night, and now you're seeing the clouds coming up the other side of the Rockies.
Right, exactly. As sometimes I used to say that, it's like taking a puzzle, a jigsaw puzzle, and then you literally drop the puzzle and see it break up into a number of pieces when you get over the Rocky Mountains. And then when you try to put the puzzle back together, you suddenly make the discovery that the pieces are not the same pieces that you had before they hit the mountains, that it's a completely different type of configuration, a completely different type of puzzle. And that's what often happens here. A storm, and as compared to the last Pacific storm, this was not as potent, but still a storm which now looks like it's going to reform into a frontal boundary more than anything else, and head its way eastward, and moving at a very rapid speed will reach us again late Thursday night and Friday morning in the form of a shot of rain. Doesn't look like it's partially because it's moving so quickly. Looks like maybe a half to maybe an inch.
Yeah,
I guess we'll see the official from QPF from the the Weather Prediction Center in a moment.
Right.
But it's going to be it'll be a fast, hard hitting surge of moisture, which will be in and will be out. And when a lot of you head out to work or school on Friday morning, most of it will probably be done with, but the damage probably will have already been done, especially if you live in places that you have to traverse that are areas of poor drainage, because that could very well lead to some local flooding concerns.
Doug Wetzel hitting Super Chat tonight. Thank you, Doug. Most appreciated on this Tuesday night. And thank you very much for being here and hitting the tip jar. So we've got clouds moving across the Great Lakes and through upstate New York and into northern New England, and those extend down into the Gulf states. But it's nothing really all that impressive when you look at the radar. Most of the showers with those clouds, by the way, are running on the north shores of Lake Erie and Ontario and moving through northeastern New York and into northern Vermont. There's a couple of showers aloft in east central PA that are moving east. Timothy Veltman pointed this out to me, so I want to bring attention to it. There are two batches of echoes here, Joe, that are kind of strange. One is this one, okay? And then there's the one underneath it, because everything is moving west to east, but those two little blobs are moving from north to south. So we were wondering whether that's, maybe some migrating geese, perhaps, or I don't know, cicadas with bad body clocks that are coming out now. I mean, I'm not sure, but it was kind of weird to see those two patches are moving actually from north to south as opposed to moving from west to east. But whatever they are, enjoy your trip. In the meantime, down through southern Ohio, northwestern Kentucky, those echoes, a lot of that's all light stuff. In fact, much of that isn't even reaching the ground. And then you've got all sorts of precip going on in Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, scattered around, also parts of western Colorado, back over to Utah and Nevada, and some heavy rains into the Pacific Northwest. There were heavy rains that moved into California overnight. Those are done for now, but it's been just so wet there. WPC, as Joe indicated, half an inch to an inch, I think is fair on their latest forecast, their latest 7-day forecast. And whatever we get for Friday is probably going to be it. overall into early next week, unless something changes radically on the models. The bulk of this that you're seeing is going to be on Friday, and actually that probably goes for the Ohio Valley and the Tennessee Valley as well. You're seeing some heavier rains up the Mississippi Valley with rainfall amounts of half an inch to an inch on the northern fringe of this. Some of that is snow. And also, again, in the Pacific Northwest, California is getting thinned out a bit in terms of rain over the next 7 days, but still pretty busy. Northwestern Oregon, the Washington coast, several to many inches as that moves on up to the northwest. Before we get to SPC, Doug Bresky hits the super chat tip jar tonight. Thank you, Doug. Thank you very much indeed, and thanks for being here tonight. Also, thanks to everybody who's on the chat board tonight, and those of you who are watching. Welcome to the show. If you're new to the show, welcome to the show. Be sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss another Joe and Joe Weather show. Now, here's something, Joe Rayo, that you don't see very often. We actually have a marginal risk of severe weather in northwestern Western Washington State. That's it. They have a marginal risk there. You almost never see severe weather risk up that way.
Well, they do see them from time to time. I don't think they call them actually gully washers when they get that. And yeah, you're right. Marginal risk in the Pacific Northwest. I won't say that's unheard of, but that is kind of unusual, especially so at this time of the year. November.
Yeah.
I mean, you would think that if they did get that, it would probably be during the summer months. Although the summer months are known to be very dry. In fact, the city of Portland, Oregon, known as the City of Roses, because the weather is so lovely, dry, and fair during, I think, the month of June. So I guess if you're going to get marginal risk for convective activity in the Pacific Northwest, Portland to Seattle, I guess this is the time of the year to get it.
Meanwhile, for tomorrow, we have a marginal risk in north central Texas, much of Oklahoma, into southeastern Kansas, and that's ahead of the next cold front. That also, by the way, comes with a area of 2% tornado risk, 5% wind risk, and 5% hail risk. But it's fairly minimal in terms of severe weather around the country, given the pattern that we have. And taking a look at days 4 to 8, I would suspect that we don't see much. And actually, this is day 3, which is Thursday into Friday, and you can see thunderstorms there being indicated in the southeastern part of the United States. They're not forecasting any thunderstorms with this front going through. I was kind of surprised. Looking at it and looking at the trough and everything else, I thought maybe there'd be a rumble or two. There could be a rumble or two of thunder somewhere.
Well, Joe, you know as well as I that we've seen on more than one occasion a system that comes in from the west, and let's say by day 4. Now, actually, what? Today's day 1.
That was day 3.
Wednesday.
That was day 3 with the
day
map
3,
I had.
But day 3, day 4. I'm sure that as we get closer now, we're going to see general thunderstorms. I would not even be surprised, Joe, if when we finally get to this thing gets to our doorstep, and we're looking at this, let's say late Thursday night, that they're warning about the possibility of maybe a marginal risk even here. Hey, if it could be marginal risk in the Pacific Northwest, like Seattle,
right?
It could be marginal risk here. Yeah.
Well, at the very least, we should have at least they have to put I would think they have to put a general thunderstorm, like a sliver up the coast there to southern New England. But again, that's just because we might hear a rumble or two of thunder. We're not talking about some widespread severe weather outbreak here. All right, so let's jump to the the teleconnections. And these are the ones from the 0Z model last night. And it's kind of interesting here to me because, especially in lieu of what the afternoon GFS runs did, because the North Atlantic oscillation on these teleconnections, the vast majority of them are neutral to negative as we head toward Thanksgiving week and beyond. And in fact, there's a couple of them that take it down almost over 2 standard deviations negative, which is impressive. Now, there are a couple of members that are either slightly positive, and there's one member that's about 1 standard deviation positive, but most of them were negative. So why the 12Z and 18Z runs did what they did, I don't, again, is beyond me. Maybe it has to do with the fact that the P&A on the overnight run, on the other hand, you had more members negative, down to about 1 standard deviation negative. A few of them were neutral or just a little bit positive. I mean, but I'm looking at this and thinking this is not enough. If it were 2 or 3 standard deviations negative, then I'd say, okay, that makes some sense. But we're not seeing that. So why don't we just take a look and see what the run did? This is the 18Z run this afternoon, and not much changes in terms of how we've laid out how the rest of the week, the weekend, the next week are going to play out. Now here's this wrapped up upper low for Friday. It's pretty far to the west. I mean, when you think about it, Joe, we got this front coming through on Friday with that line of rain and maybe a couple of thunderstorms. So, but the front runs out well ahead of the upper trough. That doesn't actually go through here until, or at least part of it doesn't go through here until later Saturday or Saturday night. So the front's going to go by, and we're going to have to wait for a second push with the upper trough later on Saturday. That will bring down some colder air for Sunday. And then you've got this next thing that tries to dig down into the Great Lakes, and then it doesn't dig all the way down, and then it just starts to swing away to the northeast into Labrador. There's another short wave that follows that around the middle of next week. Then we get into a bit of a ridge position for Thursday into Friday. But then it does this where it keeps more troughing in the west. It probably tries to bring some into the east as we go into Thanksgiving week, but it goes in and out, and then there's another trough, now it's got a ridge along the East Coast for the day before and Thanksgiving and Thanksgiving Day, blah, blah, blah. So you get the idea. There seems to be, there's a little bit of a muddled mess in the long range. So I think I'm just going to stay with what my ideas were, and we'll punt for a couple of days and see what the models tell us when we get to the end of the week, whether this is something important in terms of a different outlook that we need to pay attention to, or it's just one of those hiccups that runs for a day or two and then it goes back to what it had previously. We'll see.
Yeah, well, I agree on the latter possibility that it might be a hiccup, because you always look for, well, you say it all the time, Joe, the trend is your friend, and if all of a sudden out of left field you see something that's completely different than what you've been used to seeing over recent days, then you have to suspect that this might be a little bit of a hiccup, and that we may go back to the original ideas in the days beyond today.
And by the way, I'm just pulling up the 10 millibar, which, excuse me, interestingly enough, on starting next weekend, showing this thing stretching so much, Joe, that it actually looks like it's trying to split with the center. That's, the original center actually drops down into northern Hudson Bay, which is pretty far south. This is on This is on Tuesday, November 23rd. But you could see there it's trying to close off. I mean, it's actually trying to split here. There's one center close to Siberia, but the stronger center is moving into northern Hudson Bay. Now, it doesn't completely split because when you move the frames together, it just kind of stays stretched out. But the dominant center is the one to the south. So that's kind of interesting. See if we'll watch to see if that's something. There was a hint of this a couple of days ago. Then it kind of didn't do it. Now it's doing it again. So let's see if there's some kind of disruption that's going on. Another one of these warm disruptions in the stratosphere that causes the polar vortex to stretch and maybe possibly split down the road as we get into Thanksgiving week. But that's an interesting look here for Thanksgiving week with this way the vortex is.
Yeah, and I took a look at the GFS from earlier today, and they actually now go as far out 384 hours as far out as Thanksgiving. And there's just if you take this at face value, and of course it will change innumerable times. It's going to flip between now and Turkey Day. But right now, if you were to believe it and take it at face value, it looks like locally a rather gusty, windy, and maybe even rainy Thanksgiving Day here in the East. But we'll see. Again, it likely is going to change.
Right. Okay, so let's just run through the surface. There's not a whole lot going on. Obviously, the showers tonight go through northern New England, and then they go goodbye. The East Coast in good shape for tomorrow. Nice weak little high builds in. We've got a north breeze. We already talked about that. You can see what's going on in the northern plains. A low develops in eastern Iowa, winds up in northern Wisconsin, brings snow to northwestern Minnesota, and the line of showers and some storms with the cold front that extends southward. That's going to be moving to the east. We'll carry it along. So this is at 6 a.m. This is at 1 a.m. Friday. So raining in Pennsylvania down into Maryland and Virginia, just about to New York City by 7 a.m. Up the Hudson Valley to Vermont. The low is sitting north of Sault Ste. Marie, just kind of rotating around there and moving to the northeast. So the front carries through. Now look at this. Now we're back to this where the southern part of this front lags, and you've got rain here Saturday morning coming up from the south. Now, if you think about it, Joe, if the upper trough is going to lag as so far west the way it is, then yeah, there might be the southern part of the front probably will get hung up, and will get a second wave. And I probably will get 10 comment posts from Sal Blandino complaining that I'm talking about this for Saturday. But no matter. But we'll see. We'll have to see if we may have to go back to putting, a period of rain in on Saturday if this is correct. And then you've got this. Then you got the whole upper trough coming eastward for Sunday night and Monday. And there's the GFS producing snow in Ohio and western Pennsylvania. Not much. Monday morning, there's a little low off the Delaware coast, a little snow in northeast PA and on up into upstate New York, and then continuing with the low moving toward Nova Scotia. Dry and cold on Tuesday. Then here comes the next impulse in the next weather system that goes by on Wednesday. And then, of course, we're back into a bit of a ridge position here in the eastern part of the United States. And then at the end of next week, suddenly there's another cold front coming through with showers next Friday. Not too dissimilar to what we're seeing this Friday. And then after that, it's, there's a nice cold high that's coming down into just north of North Dakota there, a 1041 high trying to sort of spread out over the top. That's sort of interesting. And there you go, Joe. On Monday, the Thanksgiving week, there's a low that comes out of Kentucky, centered over the Delmarva Peninsula. The rain-snow line is probably around Route 84 maybe, or a little bit south of Route 84, with snow in Pennsylvania, much of upstate New York, and into New England. So there's your, maybe that's the Thanksgiving snow we were talking. That might be the event for Thanksgiving week, but who knows? It's going to be, the next one, it's going to be gone anyway. It's so silly. The silliness of the fact. Let me bring this point up to you, and you tell me what you think, and then I'll tell you you're wrong. No. I don't think it's very controversial for me to say, and I would think you would agree with me that since you and I have been basically out of the saddle forecast-wise since April when it comes to forecasting snow, I've always felt that trying to get that first system is very tough. And then if it does, when that first system does come, you're on getting that accumulation forecast right is it's very difficult, because I think it's not that it's that much different than other systems that you'll see throughout the winter so much as the fact that since you haven't seen it for 6 months, you're under a little extra pressure to get it right.
But, I agree with you 100%. And it's very much like, baseball players. They need spring training and or exhibition season. I guess you could say right now we're in exhibition season in terms of potential snowfall in at least the tri-state metropolitan area. You never did, and you're right. You never seem to get that first significant snow. Case in point, we had that snow in 2018, November 15th.
Right.
I call that the Governor Murphy storm, because Governor Murphy would, put the blame on the forecasters, when really everybody should have put the blame on municipalities throughout the area who tried to cling to as much money as they could,
Right.
and not put the chemicals down on the roadways, because initially that is the whole thing, Joe. Unless those roadways are treated, if you just let snow come along, no matter how light it is, it's going to cause all kinds of major accidents on many roadways. Even the slightest little coating, you need to treat the roads. And if you don't treat the roads, and they didn't do that in that storm in 2018, initially, it allowed the snow to accumulate and allowed for all kinds of mayhem. Again, in the middle of November the 15th. But yeah, it's kind of like in the beginning, now you got to get back into cold and snow mode.
Right.
And so far we haven't really seen that yet.
Well, you also, by the way, had to deal with on that a couple of things. That particular November 15th storm was the fact that it came down, it really did come down quick. It came down hard and fast. Second of all, you had to deal with, putting a forecast out in the face of the International Warm Ground Worshipping Society, and of course the then there was the protest march from the Sun Angle Association, or SAA. So you're listening. I have this conversation. Brian Fitzgerald and I had a good conversation about this. Good because he agreed with me, which was even better. But he lined up with me when we were talking about this whole nonsense regarding the quote warm ground. Okay, because the warm ground, I don't care what the temperature was the day before, because we've seen it. There'll be 70 the day before and blizzard conditions the next day. And you and I both remember that storm in February where we set record highs in the 70s the day before, and then it dropped. Right. It dropped to 19. I mean, that's how it happens in the Midwest and in the plains many times. It's unusual to see that here. But the warm ground applies for maybe all of about 30 minutes, because once it's snowing at the rate of about 1 inch an hour, the warm ground doesn't. It's BS. It doesn't matter. So it has impact maybe for about 30 minutes, and that's the end of that. So I just, no matter how many times I say it, those warm ground people are just, they have such a loud megaphone.
Well, it's kind of like the equivalent also of evaporational cooling, where you could have 40 degrees outside and rain. But if indeed the rain comes down hard enough, and indeed there will be a colder air mass that is slowly but surely filtering in, eventually those temperatures are going to fall to or below the freezing mark, and that rain changes over to snow. In fact, I remember in the 1982 blizzard, Joe, the one that we had on April the 6th, 1982, the night before on Channel 7 WABC, I was watching in wonderment as Storm Field, who was then their weathercaster on WABC 7, was giving the reasons why we were not going to get a big snowstorm, as opposed to everybody else, including his father, who was on competing Channel 4 in New York. Stormfield came up with this wonderful list, these bullet boxes, as to why this was not going to be as bad as everybody was saying it was going to be. And one of the reasons that he gave was, he said, look at the temperature right now. It's 40 degrees. How could we get snow when the temperature is so far above freezing this late into the night? And then he added, and he showed the relative humidity. The relative humidity was like 21%. He said, you need moisture. You need moisture. How are you going to get a snowstorm if the humidity is so low? Well, of course, the reason why it was so low was we had 41 and something like a dew point of 18. As soon as it started to rain, we saw the temperature go down, the dew point go up, and as soon as they came together, wacko, here comes the blizzard. And that's exactly what we had. But, and I'm like I said, I still remember all of these years later, remembering his reasoning. And he put this again on the screen for all to see. This is why he said we were only going to get, and even that, he said, we're only going to get 2 or 3 inches, as opposed to all the other forecasters said 8 to 12. And still, to say 2 to 3 inches in April at Central Park was still very spectacular, very significant, because April at that time was only like 1 inch. So he's talking about 2 or 3 times the normal amount of snow, but yet he was like poo-pooing. He said, don't worry about it. It ain't going to be a big deal.
Mark G says the Sun Angle Association is currently hibernating until New Year's Day, and then the days get longer and they awake to complain. Oh, you're quite right. And then, of course, you have in today's the 9th, so on December 1st, you have the Winter Cancel Club that will come out. Snow weenies who are disgusted over the fact that we didn't get any accumulating snow of any kind during the month of November, should that happen, then they will come out on December 1st and say that winter is over. So, because the world is filled with very strange weather people.
You know, sometimes you get a situation where, like in January, or February, actually not January, but more like March, early March, or late February, early March, you have a temperature that goes up to something like 60 degrees, and you walk around out there and you come back inside and say, how is it possible that we got this warm in wintertime?
And it happens all the time. It happens almost every year. I mean,
but the usual response is, no, but the usual response is, sun does good work this time of the year. In other words, the sun is much higher up now, as of late February, early March, as opposed to the dead of winter. And I remember one time when I was working at a private weather office, and I was working with my friend Pete Bergman, and I went for a low of something like 20 degrees in the overnight hours for, I forgot where, let's say Rensselaer, Indiana. Come in the next morning, come through the door, and Pete looks at me and he says, you know what it got down to in Rensselaer? And I said, no, what? He said, 35. And I'm saying, 35? I said, I went for 20. How come it stayed up so high? How come it got only to 35? And he looked at me and he said, well, moon does good work this time of year.
Yeah, it does. All right, do you have Briller Jeopardy? Because I don't.
I don't think I have Briller
do
Jeopardy?
I have one? Let me take a look again.
I will check.
Hold on.
Could be the...
Hold on. By the way, Scott sent me a tweet today from Judah Cohen, who this morning was talking about the fact that, you know, he's on the same page that we are with regards to the latter part of November. So of course, I do have it. By the way, I have it. Of course, the very next 2 GFS runs make you want to call it into question. So anyhow, okay. So you ready? We're still on the theme of Antarctica. And there are 7 answers tonight. You only need 3 of them to pass, okay? There are 7 countries beside the United States that have territorial claims on Antarctica. Name those 7 nations.
Well, at least we know one. At least I know one, and that is Russia. In fact, I think one of the places in Antarctica is Vostok.
Right. But they, Joe, do not have a claim to Antarctica.
Oh, really?
They do not.
But they have research stations.
Yeah, but they do not
have. So there's a difference.
They don't have a land claim.
Okay. Well, if you remember, not too long ago, my God, it's like 40 years already. There was a big war down in the area in the Southern Ocean, just off of Antarctica, north of Antarctica, the Falkland Islands.
Yes.
And Great Britain went up against Argentina for as to who officially owns those little islands that are located down just to the southern tip of South America. So I'm going to say Argentina and the UK.
Yes,
Do they have any kind of claim to?
Argentina and the UK are both correct answers.
Thank you. And let's see. I'm thinking of countries that are close to Antarctica, and on the other side of Antarctica, there's Australia and New Zealand. I could believe New Zealand might put a claim in for it. I'm not sure about Australia, but I'll say Australia and New Zealand.
And Australia and New Zealand are also both correct. So you've already knocked off. You've already knocked off 4 of them, which leaves you 3. So you've already
well, I'm leaving,
you've already passed. But let's see if you can get the next 3.
I'm leaving on a ship from Chile, Punta Arenas, Chile. So they are very close. I mean, they are as close.
In Santiago, Chile. Yeah.
Well, what about
Chile?
What about Chile?
Chile is on there.
Okay. After that, I'm dead. I have no clue.
All right.
I can.
the two that. The 2 left.
You know, wait a minute. I'm leaving on a ship that's going to be primarily a ship that's owned by a high-end company in France. So for the hell of it, I'll just say, how about France?
How about France? Yes, France. And this leaves 1 nation left. I'll help you with this. This nation is in Europe. Okay.
Oh, thank you. What could it be? Could it be Spain?
No.
Could it be Oslo, Norway?
Norway. Norway. Yes, Norway. Oh
my goodness.
And believe it or not, so of all these nations, believe it or not, I got the map up here. I'm gonna pull it up on the screen here. Give me a second. This was actually surprising to me, and then I thought about it, and it was not that surprising to me. But take a look here on the map. So the orange area is Australia. Australia has the largest claim. Let me make sure I'm reading this legend correctly. Give me a moment.
It's interesting you're showing this, because the other night Renata made like not 1, not 2, but I think like 4 different maps of Antarctica.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, why do you need 4 maps? And she says, well, I wanted to look at the places, the research stations, and
see where the malls are.
You should look at them. Yeah, exactly.
See where the shopping malls are. So Australia is the orange, and they claim a very large portion of Australia, but Norway is the second largest area there in the purple. And I thought about it, and on an episode of Planet Earth that they did on Antarctica, there was a huge, I mean, it was really awful, thinking about it now, looking back at it. But in the 1800s and into the late 1800s and into the early part of the 20th century, whaling was a huge industry. And Norway was very big on the whaling, and they actually almost annihilated an entire population of the I forgot which whether it was the blue whales or one of the whale species was almost driven to extinction because they would. And the thing is, you pointed out how you were saying how those animals don't see humans very often, if at all. So they don't have any real fear of them. And they were able to, they would get these whales that would just come up to them, come up right to them. They didn't have to do anything. It's not like they had to chase them out over the open ocean and hunt them down. The whales came to them because they were so trusting, and they would murder them. I mean, they would go after females with calves, and they would kill the calves first, and the females in distress over their losing their baby then they would be, an absolutely simple catch, and then they they would melt them down for the blubber, the oil that they would use to make margarine and all sorts of stuff. I mean, it was just terrible. But
ambergris, which is the ingredient for perfume, which is whale duty, Joe, or
yeah,
doo-doo.
yeah,
Believe it or not.
Well, they don't do that anymore. So but the remnants of the stations that they built down there, where they lived and where they did some of their work with regards to the whaling stuff, are actually still there. They're desolate. I mean, nobody's there anymore.
Right.
As sort of a historical marker and a reminder of what had happened over the course of decades in that part in the Antarctic Ocean, or the Southern Ocean, as it's often referred to. So anyway, very interesting.
I want to if you give me a chance to share one graphic, which will make you, and I know will make a lot of people on this chat board feel very old.
Go ahead.
All righty, you ready for this? Here we go. This, ladies and gentlemen, today is the 56th anniversary of the great power failure that hit the northeastern United States.
Oh, wow.
November the 9th, 1965, 56 years ago tonight. And Joe, I remember it like it was yesterday. I was living in Throgs Neck, and I was watching on a little, it was actually a square box, a white square box, a television, a Philco television set with rabbit ears. And I was watching the Winchell Mahoney Time show with Paul Winchell and Jerry Mahoney, which was on Channel 5, WNEW TV. It was on at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And about 5:15 or 5:20, I remember that the screen started to shrink. It was kind of like today, if you're watching a show that was not in high resolution or high definition, and you see the black, on the sides of the screen, there are black columns or whatever, and the screen started to shrink. And I didn't know what was going on. And at 5:25, I decided that I would take things into my own hand. I started banging on the side of the Philco TV. And finally, I made one gigantic bang. And when I banged, not only did the TV go out, but all the lights in the house went out.
Don't you love when stuff like that happens?
What did I do?
Yeah.
What happened? And that was the beginning of about 12 hours of darkness, which was illuminated that night by an almost full moon. So that was a very interesting. And I remember listening on the transistor radio. Yes, we had transistor radios back then, high technology. Listening to Dan Ingram on WABC, and that Dan Ingram actually went all the way out to Lodi, New Jersey, where the ABC transmitter was, with a bunch of records, and he's playing records to try to quell the fears and everything of people who and people, of course, in Manhattan getting stuck, no traffic lights or whatever. So that was that craziness happened 56 years ago tonight. And I don't know, again, how many of you on the chat board remember that. But that was a memorable night, no question about that.
Well, 56 years goes by awfully quick.
Yes,
it really does.
It sure do.
All right.
I wonder if we'll. I wonder where will we be 56 years from now, Joe?
Listen, the way technology and biotechnology and medical advances are happening the way they do, don't be surprised if we're here doing this show in 56 years.
Now, Scott D says on the chat board, Joe Rayo was 35. I was not 35 when the blackout hit in 1965. Right. My goodness.
Yeah, no, that would make you 91 today, and you're, no. No.
I'm a little bit more robust than 91.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. That calls for an acknowledgement of why can't I move this? Why is this not moving? Oh, come on. There we go. An acknowledgement of the sponsors of our program, Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. And excuse me, their telephone number is 631-957-5. I'm sorry, their phone number is 631-756-1125, and their website is omnitruevalue.com. Wholesale Holiday Lighting by Giannini, your complete holiday lighting specialist, meeting all your decorating needs at 162 Ocean Avenue in Lindenhurst, New York. And their telephone number is 631-957-5106, and their website is liholidaylighting.com. Okay, so back tomorrow night at the same shopping time of 7:30. Thanks everybody for being here, and we'll see you then. Good night, everybody.
Nighty night.